Hi, my name's Blethen from Walker Scott, and in this series we've been covering a wide range of look and feel and navigation within D365 Finance and Operations. In this session, I'll be covering the Personalisation tool. It should be noted I'm using a standard Microsoft D365 environment with Microsoft's Contoso demo data. So let's jump right in. Now, depending on where you are in Dynamics, is where you access the Personalisation toolbar. So if I'm on the home page, we can simply click on the cog and click Personalize, and this will bring up the Personalisation toolbar. One thing to note with the Personalisation toolbar is you can click on the left of it and drag it around your screen. And you'll see that there are a number of icons, and we're going through these shortly. I'm going to click Close and navigate to a different area in Dynamics. I'm going to navigate to All Customers and the All Customer Master. So if I click on this particular record, you can see I've got the Customer Master. And to bring up the Personalisation toolbar, we can click Options and personalize this page. This also brings up the toolbar, and you can see the menu items here. Now, by default, when you first open up the Personalisation toolbar, it brings the Select option. Now, the benefit of the Personalisation toolbar is you can perform multiple personalizations at a single time. And we have covered personalizations in a previous session, but we're going to cover the tool itself. So when Select is available, we can click on different areas of Dynamics, and you can see that it highlights an entire section. So what this allows you to do is you can hide, you can personalize, and you can select multiple areas at a point in time. So for example, if I click on this other information, if I left click away and then left click, you can see, or if I hover over it, you can see that it's going to bring up just the information that is for these 4 fields. So rather than hiding them individually, for example, if that's something that I wanted to do, I can hide them all at once. And that's the benefit of the select tool, is you can select an entire area, and from there, for example, if I really wanted to, I could remove the entire section, and you can see the general section is entirely blank. If you make a mistake, you can simply close and refresh your browser, because as I mentioned in the personalization session, until you save your views, those changes won't take effect. So if I jump back to the general, you can see all those fields are back. If I click on the options, personalize this page again, what you can see is the next area is hide. So if I'm specifically wanting to hide multiple fields, that's where we can then click the hide option, and I can click on multiple fields, or I can click on groups of fields. So as you can see, I just want to hide a couple of these fields, but not necessarily the headers. I can get rid of the phonetic name, I can get rid of address books, and what you'll notice is when I close the personalization tool, all these fields have been hidden. So rather than one by one, you can use the personalization tool to hide multiple fields at a time. Now, as I mentioned, until you save from the standard view, those personalizations haven't been changed and they haven't been saved. So we'll be covering views in a separate session. Back on the personalization tool though, so we've covered the select, where you can select different areas to then edit themselves. The other option then is require. So by default, if I click on edit, there are a number of fields that aren't mandatory. So for example, organization number, known as, are not mandatory fields. However, under the personalization, we can enforce that these fields are required. So by clicking on require, I can say I'd like organization to be required and known as. Now when I click close, you'll see that the star, which is a required field now, becomes required. So you can do that for multiple fields that work for your organization. Jumping back to the personalization tool, we can add multiple fields as well. So depending on where you're clicking, so for example, if I wanted to at the record title level, I could click up here and I can add a field. So I can add, for example, the ABN number, click update, and what you'll see is it's now added up here. You can keep adding similar fields, so I can keep adding ABN, for example. I now have ABN added to the screen. Now, the next example we have is the move. So, for example, if I've added this field and I'd like to move the field, we can simply click on it. You'll get this little cutout. Once you have the cutout, you can left click on the cutout and move it to an area that works for you. So you can see I've put it in a completely separate section. I can keep clicking and moving it so it appears in different areas of the grid. The same with this field up here. So if I left click on it, I can then click and drag. I can move it to a different section and move it with the squiggly line. There we go. You can see it's moved. Now, as I mentioned, if you make any mistakes, you can simply just refresh the browser because we haven't saved the views at this stage. So I'm going to click close and I'll quickly refresh and I'll get back the standard view for this particular area. The next part of the tool we're going to explore then is under personalize this page again, we have the skip. Now, this can be really useful for data entry purposes where you may need a field. So rather than hiding the field, you may need it to display. However, from a data entry perspective, you may want to skip past it. So by hitting skip, we can click on, for example, these two fields. We can click on number of employees, for example, and we can skip these fields. Now, what that means is when you're in a data entry mode, so for example, if I'm on customer group and I tab across from a field, it will actually move on to the next field in the grid. So skipping that field, it actually completely skips and jumps to the next field that is available. So it didn't go into classification group, it completely skipped that field. So really useful from a data entry perspective if you're not planning on hiding certain fields. Next, under the personalization tool, we then have the show in header. So this we've explained in the personalization is that you can add additional information to the fast tabs when they're collapsed. So this allows you to do it in one big bulk. So for example, I can put name, account, customer group is already there. I can add, for example, language. And when I click close, you'll see that they've now been added to the collapsible fast tabs. So a nice feature there. The next area that we're going to cover is lock. So this means that you cannot edit the field. So this is used occasionally, but this allows you to lock a field so that it isn't changed. Then we have a few options under the triple dots. So if I click on the triple dots, there's a few options where we can add an app. We can also clear personalizations that have been made. This, again, is another alternative. If you've made a mistake, you can clear your personalizations. We can import personalizations and we can export personalizations as well. So depending on your personalizations that you've made, so for example, if I skip to a different view, so Blevins Quick View, and I go to options, personalize this page, under the triple dots, you can see I now have the export personalization, and that has given me a file that I can then send to a colleague, and they can then upload those personalizations. Now we will be covering personalization management or view management in a separate session. So in summary, we've talked about the personalization tool. As I mentioned, you can drag this around your session. The select allows you to select multiple options or focus on a specific area for your personalizations. We've talked about the hide, require, add field, moving fields, skipping fields, and showing fields in the header. We briefly talked about the lock and the ability to import and export your personalizations. So all in all, the personalization tool is a way where you can mass personalize your screens rather than on an individual field by field basis. Thank you.